Good morning, everyone. We're continuing KITZUR HILCHOS SHABBOS. And we just began yesterday the topic of boirer, which is the separating of one thing, that the thing that you want, from that which you don't want, the unwanted, the refuse, what we call the trash, that which is not wanted right now. When you separate one from the other, that's going to be the malacha of boirer, and he's going to begin to clarify and explain details. In what types of items are going to fall into this category of the Isser of Boirer? Even though that in most places that we speak about Breira, about selecting and sorting, we speak about the concept of Eicha, food, from Psailis, from the unwanted, from the refuse, which means I have food that I want, this is the good food, and that's the waste that I don't want. The truth of the matter is, you don't have to have food that you want, and psailis, and the unwanted part of that food, the rocks, the dirt, the peels and the like, you don't have to have that to be over, to transgress this prohibition of boirer. However, every time that you have two different items in front of you, and you only want one of them, you have already entered into the realm of boirer, of the prohibition of selecting and sorting. And that means you don't need to only have a case where you're removing the rocks from the produce or from the food that you want, like we explained above. That certainly is a case of you're selecting the food from the psailis, from the trash, meaning I'm taking the food that I want and I'm removing the rocks. Rather, even if both things are equal, they're both good, but I only want one of these things right now. And since I don't want the other one, my desire now is to remove that from here. You've already entered into the realm of boirer once again. And therefore, it's as if you are separating the good from the bad, the wanted from the unwanted. Even though the second thing is not rocks, it's not bad. For example, as we'll see, you have a fruit salad, and you have, in that fruit salad, you have grapes, and you have bananas, and you're not interested in the bananas, you only want the grapes. So even though there's nothing wrong with the bananas, but if you remove the bananas from that salad, so you're doing the prohibition of boirer, as we shall see as we go through this halacha together. That means that we call the food that you want, it's called oichel. And the one that you don't need and you don't want, and you're removing, even if you're going to want it later on, which means I'll eat the bananas later. Says we call it psailis, we call it the unwanted, we call it the refuse. That's already considered boirer. And not only that, what if you need both things? But you want to choose one from the other. That's also going to be called boirer, and we'll call it choosing and selecting the oichel, the food, that which is wanted, min apsolis, from that which is unwanted. We're going to have to make distinctions, as we will see, whether you are choosing something that you need immediately, something you're putting aside for later on down the road. We'll see all the details, how we're going to be able to how will you ever take anything that you want? We'll see how the halacha is going to deal with that. Like we're going to explain later on. And this malacha was not only said when it comes to choosing food items, is called davar. It comes to choosing any items. Whenever you have two different items and you're choosing one from the other, noyeg iser boirer. You are going with the iser, the prohibition of boirer, of selecting. And therefore, gam bebreus begadim shonim, that you choose two different types of clothing, svarim, or different books. Kli sudu kedaima, or different vessels that you need for your meal, the serving plate or the spoon or the fork and the like. In all of these cases, you could end up coming to a prohibition of bayrer. We'll take a look later on as we're going to go step by step, and we'll see all the details that are involved. So bayrer is, as we mentioned yesterday, it will encompass so many areas of our Kedushas HaShabbos and our Shmir Shabbos, and the better that we understand what we're dealing with, the more on guard we'll be to make sure that we're keeping Shabbos in the proper way. Have a wonderful day.